Welcome all. We will start a new chapter today for OCS Civil Service Examinations. Instead, start as I have told you a chapter on judiciary. It's quite important chapter for our examinations. Judiciary is an integral branch or integral branch of or organ of government. But what is the role of judiciary in that is you can say what is the role of judiciary in India or in any democracy? What is the role of judiciary in democracy? We shall discuss first. What is the role of judiciary? What do you think? Hmm? Role of judiciary in a country. First foremost thing in judiciary is to kind of ascertaining or ensure that the other organs of the government are according in accordance with the constitution, are functioning in accordance with the constitution. The one establishes the foremost foremost role of the judiciary is to establishes constitutional supremacy or supremacy of the law. It ensures that the other organ of the government, like the executive and the uh, legislature, are functioning in accordance with the constitution. Okay? If any organ, any part, any institution under the state runs in contradictory to the constitution, runs contradictory to the standing law or the law of the country, judiciary will restrain or restrict or declare such action ultra vires. Another the role of the dispute resolution. Human interaction studies nothing but collective human interaction. So, for the foremost duty of the dispute will be there. Disputes are natural part of the state, natural part of the functioning of the government. So, judiciary is made independent to decide the disputes between citizens, between state and citizens, between two state governments, between the central and states. So there can be many type of disputes. Disputes between central and states, between citizens, disputes between citizens, between citizens, between citizens and government or state, between states, between central and states, between institutions, you can see between institutions, etc. and etc. So these are the between institutions and citizens and institutions. Anything can be like that. Another is the measure is ensures or ensuring equal justice for all. Ensuring equal justice for all. Supreme Court the judiciary ensures equal justice for all, irrespective of religion, race, caste, all barriers. The court will ensure that everybody living in the country or everybody living in the country or everybody having settlement in the country will definitely get due justice. Okay, so that is the thing about the judiciary. They ensure justice. They establish rule of law. They ensure coordination, maybe prospective legislation or guidance, guardian, custody, custodian of constitution. This is why we need a judiciary. Judiciary is an integral part of a political state or political community, but it is an important organ. It is important organ of the government. No government will exist, and but it is very important or quite much more important in a democracy, especially. Then nature of judiciary in India. Nature of judiciary in India. You understand what is the meaning of nature? Means what is the nature, shape, and characteristic of judiciary in India? Judiciary in India is both integrated and independent. Judiciary in India is integrated and independent. Both. It is integrated because there is one system of fundamental law, one system of fundamental law, there is one constitution and one framework of law, and there is a superior and subordinate court system. Superior and subordinate court system. One fundamental law, superior and subordinate court system. That means the higher court and the lower courts, or the Supreme Court, High Court, and District Courts. There are structural courts, there is structure of the courts, there is Supreme Court, and there is High Courts, at the state level, and there are subordinate courts, and the subordinate court is also subdivided into further process. There are civil courts, revenue courts, session court, and revenue courts, so on and so on. That is why Indian judiciary is called integrated judiciary. Integrated judiciary is helpful for unifying as a unifying force, and it strengthens unity and integrity of the country. So it avoids dual or multiple types of laws in a country. Then judiciary is functionally independent. Judiciary is independent of executive and legislative interference and arbitrariness. Judiciary is independent of the executive and legislative branch, hence that it can deliver justice. It can make people or it can fulfill its objectives. If judiciary is committed, if in democracy, if you have a committed judiciary, loyal judiciary, then it will not be helpful for promotion of democracy in a country. The judiciary must be independent of executive and legislative interference or executive interference or executive interference or executive interference or legislative arbitrariness. That is why executive is to be remain independent, because unless it is independent, it cannot fulfill its natural or its prime objective, like promoting law and promoting rule of law, or establishing constitutional supremacy and ensuring justice to the people. It cannot do that. Hence, judiciary remains to be independent. But how? How is judiciary independent of the executive and legislative control? Judiciary is independent of executive and legislative control in this way, like in case of mode of appointment. In mode of appointment, judiciary is independent of executive and legislative interference. It means there is least participation by the least influence of the executive on the appointment of judges and Chief Justice of India and other judges and Chief Justice of High Courts. Because judges are appointed by President, no doubt, but only on the opinion of the Chief Justice of India and four other judges for Supreme Court and three other judges for High Courts, that we call collegium. So, the mode of appointment is very important because they are free from that. So, they are appointed by President only on the opinion of the collegium, that we call collegium, consisting of Chief Justice of India and other judges. That's why it is important. Number one is mode of appointment. We shall write again. Mode of appointment. Number two, security of tenure. Security of tenure. That is article 124. All these mentioned. Security of tenure. Judges do not hold office during the pleasure of the president. They are removed by an order of the president, no doubt, but the president issues an order after the parliament passes a removal resolution against the judge in special majority. Then only the president will issue an order. That's why it enjoys security. They don't judges don't do not hold office during the pleasure of the president. They can be removed only after removal resolution is approved by the parliament and passed and passed by it. Then president issues an order. Number three, fixed service condition. We have discussed it for us in salient feature class, but still I'm repeating those points for your cognizance, for your knowledge. Fixed service conditions. Fixed service conditions. The service conditions of the judges cannot be altered to their disadvantage during their term. During their term, the service conditions cannot be altered or changed. That means any condition put in the appointment, ଯଦି କୌଣସି appointment letter ଯାହା ବି conditions ଅଛି, all these conditions cannot be altered to their disadvantages. Number four, expenses. Expenses charged upon the consolidated fund of India. I have already told you what is charged expenditure. Charge expenditure is an expenditure which is which is withdrawn from the consolidated fund of India, and it is not subject to any alteration by the parliament, or it is not subject to vote by parliament. It is just discussed and passed. So that is called expenses charged upon the president of the consolidated fund of India. Number five, the conduct of judges cannot be discussed. Cannot be discussed in legislatures. Conduct of judges cannot be discussed in legislature, that except during the removal resolution. They cannot be often called into question, but it does not disallow, does not prevent anybody, any institution from having constructive criticism. Anyway, but the conduct of judges is restricted, is restrictively discussed. Number six, ban on ban on appointment, ban on appointment after retirement. The judges of Supreme Court, the judges and the Chief Justice of Supreme Court are not entitled to practice anywhere in India. Are not entitled to practice anywhere in India, in any court or any tribunal. And the judges of high courts can take up practice. It was provided in 7th Amendment Act 1956 that judges of high courts, retired judges, can take up practice in the Supreme Court of India and in other high courts than the high court in which they last worked. Next, number 7, appointment of own staff. Appointment of own staff. The Supreme Court and High Court have the authority to appoint their own staff under the direct supervision of the Chief Justice. Notably, these are the factors which make judiciary independent of the control. There have been courts of record also, so that can be added also. So these points are like a mode of appointment, security of tenure, fixed service conditions, expenses charged in the consolidated fund, conduct of judges cannot be discussed, ban on appointment after retirement, appointment of own staff, etc. are the reasons why judiciary independent in India. All right. So now we shall start with the segment of Supreme Court of India. The Supreme Court of India is mentioned in article in part B of the Constitution. Article 124 to 147 deals with the Supreme Court. It is a federal court. It is a federal court, especially it is a federal court. It is a federal court and the highest court of appeal. The highest court of appeal in India. The highest court of appeal in India. If you look at the history of Supreme Court, history, its predecessor was the Federal Court of India. Established on 1st April 1937, and this court became the Supreme Court of India on 28 January 1950. But this court was not as independent as Supreme Court of India at present, because this court doesn't have independent powers. The verdict of the Federal Court of India was to be approved by British Privy Council. British Privy Council was to appoint the was to appoint was to I mean approve the judgment of the federal court. Then only it would come into force. But today there is nobody above the Supreme Court to approve its judgment. It is the final and plenary authority, and its decision, its judgment are binding. Its laws, its verdicts are binding across the country and across all courts across the country, all courts and tribunal across the country. So, I mean, although a court was established like the Supreme Court of India in 1937, but it was not the independent court, exactly the independent court as we have today. Okay, so that is called history of Supreme Court of India. And Supreme Court was inaugurated. Supreme Court was inaugurated on 28 January 1950. Okay, that is the things. Now it shall come to the strength of Supreme Court. Strength refers to strength of Supreme Court. Strength means number of CJI, Chief Justice of India plus other judges. They are called puisne judges. Puisne Judges. Initially in 1950 it was 7 plus 1, I mean 8, and in 1956 it was 9 plus 1, I mean 10. So likewise it increased to various that is increased to increase to other numbers from year periodically. In, for example, in 2009 it was increased to 30 plus 1, and in 2021 it was increased to 33 plus 1, so 31. So the current of Supreme Court, current strength of Supreme Court is 34. But the question arises: who decides the strength? Who passes the order, or who passes the legislation? Whether it is a statutory initiative or an executive initiative. It is a statutory initiative, because the parliament of India increases the strength of the Supreme Court. Strength of the Supreme Court. That is why, okay, that is the cause. So, in case of High Court, you will see the president increases the strength of High Court, the strength of the judges, not the parliament, or not. It is not a statutory initiative, rather it is a executive initiative by the state government. All right. So that is the things. Now we shall come to the Supreme Court of India, as I have told you, and we will also discuss the difference between the American Supreme Court. But first, let me teach you the basic things about Supreme Court. This is the strength of Supreme Court, and it is decided by the Parliament, and Parliament increases the number of judges from time to time. Now, the qualification of the judges. Article 124 states about the qualifications. The qualification of the judges is like the citizen of India, number 2, a judge of Supreme Court, a judge of High Court or High Courts for at least 5 years, for at least 5 years. Number 3, or an advocate, practicing advocate of in High Court and or High Courts for at least 10 years, or number four, and sorry, a distinguished jurist, a distinguished jurist in the opinion of opinion of the president. So look at the qualification carefully. You will see there are a lot of things we have to remember that a distinguished jurist in the opinion of president, and this qualification is modified by the parliament from time to time, and the person should have a citizen of India and judge of high court for at least 5 years, or an advocate in a high courts for at least 10 years, or a distinguished jurist in the opinion of the president. That is the qualifications. And remember, any change in the qualification, any change in the qualification of the judges shall be made by the parliament. The parliament shall uh, make these things, but these are constitutional qualifications. But constitution has not prescribed uh, any minimum age for the appointment. That is also a thing. Next, appointment. Okay, now appointment. Earlier, the Constitution mentions the Article 124. The judges of Supreme Court shall be appointed by the President in consultation with the Chief Justice of India. In 19 in 1993, the second judge case, the case was there, second judge case. 1993, the Supreme Court held that the Supreme Court held that the Supreme Court held that the consultation of Chief Justice means concurrence of the Chief Justice. Okay, consultation of Chief Justice means the Supreme Court held that the what Consultation means concurrence. It means the opinions given by the Supreme Court, Chief Justice of India, in the appointment of the judges of Supreme Court and High Court is binding. The opinion or the advice of the Chief Justice of India in this matter shall be binding upon the President. In third judge case, 1998, the Supreme Court held that the Supreme Court held that or opined that the consultation process to be adopted by the Chief Justice of India requires consultation of plurality of judges. That the consultation of the CJ should mean consultation of plurality of judges. It means that the court held that the Chief Justice, before giving his opinion or advice, must consult such other judges of the Supreme Court, and accordingly, it was said that the Chief Justice must consult. The sole opinion of the Chief Justice of India does not constitute the consultation process. He should consult a collegium of 4 senior most judges of the Supreme Court, and even 2 judges give an adverse opinion. He should not send the recommendation to the government. Okay, so that is the advent of collegium system in India, and in this case, the collegium, he should consult the collegium of 4 senior most judges of the Supreme Court and even 2. So the Chief Justice should consult a collegium of 4 senior most judges. 4 senior most judges. 4 senior most judges. Senior most judges of whom? Of the Supreme Court. Before giving his opinion to the President. So that happened in third judge case 1998. Although in first judge case 1982, the Supreme Court held that consultation does not mean concurrence, and consultation here means doesn't mean consultation. In the first judge we have not mentioned, but remember, in the first judge case 1982, the court had already opined that the consultation is not concurrence, and it only implies that exchange of views. So in the second judge case that was made binding, that means a concurrence, and in the third judge case, the sole discretion of the Chief Justice of India will not do The court held that not only the Chief Justice should give its opinion after consulting a collegium of four other judges, and if two judges out of them differ or contradict a decision, then it will not be implemented. So this is how the collegium system worked, and this is all about your appointment. But by 99th Constitutional Amendment Act 2014, the just a minute, please. Hello, 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 hello. So by 2014, the government introduced 99th Constitutional Amendment to by established to by 19 a national judicial. Hello, huh? Hello. Every class is ଟିକେ ହଁ, So, Judicial Appointment Commission (NJSC) was to be set up, and the ultimate objective of NJSC was to replace the collegial system. NJSC was to be a multi-member body chaired by the Prime Minister. There would be a number of other persons except judges. So, in a nutshell, we can say that to reduce or to subdue, you can subdue the judicial domination in the appointment of the judges. The government wanted to establish a multifaceted body for the recommendations for the appointment of the judges. So NJC's well, its prime objective was to replace the collegium system and establish a, you can say, variegated body comprising of political leaders, members of civil society, eminent jurists and judges together for the for recommending for recommendations for the appointment of. This act came into effect on 19th, you can say on 2015. This act came into effect on 2015, 99th Amendment Act, 99th Amendment Act. So you can say 99th Amendment Act, Constitutional Amendment Act, came into effect on 2015. So that was in that was also approved by 16 states, assemblies out of 29 states, including Goa, Rajasthan, others. And this act enacted to its and signed commenced on 13 April. This act came into effect and commenced on 13th April 2015. And the whole objective of the act, I told you, that was enacted to replace the Supreme Court, replace the collegium system. But this amendment was struck down by the Supreme Court in fourth judge case 2015. In fourth judge case 2015, the the act was declared ultra virus and void by the Supreme Court and restored, and the Supreme Court restored the collegium system. So this is all about your appointment of the judges, and you come to see the appointment of the judges. It's done by the judiciary. It is must have judicial supremacy in the case of appointment. So 124. Okay, understood. So that is the things in the third judge case, and you can also we are also mentioning the fourth judge case was in fourth judge case. This is all about your appointment. This is the appointment of judges, but appointment of chief justice, appointment of CJ. In the earlier constitution, you can say in the earlier constitution, from 1950 to 1973, the senior most judge of the Supreme Court was appointed as the Chief Justice of India. But there was deviation in 1973. A.N. Ray, the Chief Justice of India in 1973, and M.U. Beg in 1977 was appointed as the Chief Justice of India by superseding senior most judges. This was a rampant violation of the norm and convention that was there. So in second judge case, you remember the year? Second judge case, 1993, the SC held that the SC held that the SC held that only the senior most judge of Supreme Court should be appointed as the CJI. So now it is fixed that only the chief senior most judge of the Supreme Court shall be appointed as the Chief Justice of India. No other judges, no other judges. That is called in second judge case. Next is your appointment of acting Chief Justice. Appointment of acting Chief Justice of India. Acting Chief Justice of India is appointed, you can say, that is when there in certain circumstances, acting Chief Justice appointed under in certain circumstances under Article 126 of the Constitution. 126 of the Constitution. Acting CJI is appointed by the President when number A, the office of the CJI falls vacant. Number B, when the CJI is temporarily absent. And number C, when the CJI is incapable of performing its official duties. So in this case, the President appoints the acting Chief Justice of India for a brief period of time, and obviously out of the judges of Supreme Court. But that is, I think, up to the discretion of the President to decide. And when a judge serves as an acting Chief Justice of India, he avails himself all the benefits and all the financial pecuniary benefits and facilities of the judge, powers and positions of the Chief Justice of India. But remember that he is for a brief period of time. He is not considered a full Chief Justice or full term Chief Justice of India. Okay, that is called appointment of CJ. Then appointment of ad hoc judges. That is Article 127. Ad hoc means temporary judges. When there is a shortage of judges or shortage in the quorum of the judges of a Supreme Court to fill up the quorum. in any bench like constitutional bench or divisional. So Supreme Courts had certain benches, certain courts, and so each bench should consist of such number of judges. For example, if the case is about constitution or interpretation of the constitution, or I mean constitutional case, there must be five judge bench, and for others it can be one or it can be more than one. So when there is a lack of judges to constitute another bench, new bench, the Supreme Court has the provision, but the Constitution provides the provision under Article 126 that the Chief Justice of India may appoint certain ad hoc judges with previous sanction of the President to fill up the quorum and to continue the work. So ad hoc judges are appointed by are appointed by CJI, Chief Justice of India, with previous sanction of the President. And previous sanction of the President. And they are ad hoc, and they are not treated as full judge of the Supreme Court. They are only ad hoc judges. And the provisions for their, you can say, um, that temporary period he can do so only after consultation with the Chief Justice of High Court concerned also and the previous sanction of the President. The Chief Justice not only gets the previous sanction of the President but also the consults with the High Court of the Chief Justice of the High Court from which the judge is to be transferred. It is the duty of the judge so appointed to attend the sittings of Supreme Court in priority to other duties of his office. While doing so, he enjoys all the jurisdiction, powers, and privileges of a judge of the Supreme Court. So that is for temporary periods, and it is under Article 127. Then I will tell about retired judges. I'll tell about retired judges of Supreme Court. Retired judges, there are yes 128 appointment or availability of you can say appointment of retired judges. Article 128. The Supreme Court can avail itself the services of the retired judges if there is a need, and it can do so. The retired judges are appointed by the President. The retired judges are appointed by the President, no doubt. By the appointed by the Chief Justice of India. Yes, at any time the Chief Justice of India can request the service of that. Although with the private sanction of the period, he can do so only previous consent. Such a judge is entitled to such analysis as President may determine. He will also enjoy the jurisdiction, powers, and privileges of judge of Supreme Court, but he will not otherwise deemed to be a judge of the Supreme Court. He will not be entitled to the same salary, but his remuneration, his compensation will be decided by the President, but he will enjoy the jurisdiction privileges of the Supreme Court, but he is not a full judge. And the provision of appointment of retired judges is mentioned in Article 128 of the Constitution. Okay, these are the major factor about the judges, different appointments, different type of appointments of the judges. Okay, there are regular judges, there are CJI, there are acting Chief Justice of India, there are ad hoc judges, there are retired judges also, provisions, all these things. Next is oath. The president or any authority appointed by him shall administer the judges swears that they will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of India. They will uphold sovereignty and integrity of the country. They will perform their duty faithfully to the best of their ability, knowledge, and judgment, and perform duties of the office without fear or favor, ill will, or affection. They will uphold the Constitution of India. So their oath is quite important because they are the protector of the Constitution, they are the guardian of the Constitution, they are the custodian of the Constitution. They have all the constitutional authority to protect the Constitution from being destroyed, from being violated, from being infringed, trespassed, all these things. The oath of the things. The president shall appoint the oath. Then we shall come into the points of salary. So a judge, as is determined by the parliament from time to time, at present the CHI will get rupees 2.8 lakh per month, and the judges rupees 2.5 lakh, and their salaries and allowances are charged upon the consolidated fund of India. That means they cannot be altered, changed, or you can say means significantly altered to their disadvantage during their tenure. But they can be increased. Is that clear? They can be increased. They can be means given more and more salary, but their salary cannot be reduced, cannot be compromised, withheld. And but in exceptional circumstances like financial emergency, the salary of the judges of Supreme Court and High Court may be withheld, may be reduced. That is the last resort, last step to be taken by the government. So they are protected salaries. And apart from the salaries and allowances, they are also entitled to pension every month as per their last drawn salary. So high financial security is provided to the judges in order to avoid dependence on the executive. So that is your oaths are affirmation, and we have discussed also salaries, and now it was increased in 2018 on the recommendation of Seventh Pay Commission, and the salary is charged upon the Consolidated Fund of India, and it is a highly protected salary in the country. Okay, that is called your next 10 years with resignations. Resignation, we can say that in the same article, resignation 124, but salary is 125 article, and they will submit the resignation to the President of India. Then tenure, not a fixed tenure. They don't have a fixed tenure, you can say. They don't have a fixed tenure means they whether they will stay for 5 years, 6 years, 10 years, or 7 years at a time or not. That is not mentioned. Their upper age limit, upper age limit is 65 years. But judges do not hold office during the pleasure of the president. So removal, we shall discuss the removal of judges. Remember, judges are removed only after removal resolution is approved. Judges can be removed by president, no doubt, only after a removal resolution is passed. So procedure of resolution. The charge when misbehavior and incapacity. There are fixed two grounds: proven misbehavior and incapacity. Then the charge should be supported 100 members. Or 14 days notice. So please take a note of that. Okay. The next process. The removal resolution. The removal resolution should be introduced in either House of Parliament. So the removal जोटा आम कहे सेटा गोटे legislative procedure, obviously because the word resolution is there, and such removal resolution must be introduced in either house, means both the houses are open for that. The first house, where the first house where the RR removal resolution was initiated, should constitute a 3-member committee consisting of CJI of India plus a Chief Justice of High Court, and okay, that is called the 3-member committee. Eminent jurist to investigate the charges, investigate the charges. And if the committee finds the judge guilty of the offense, then it will submit a report to the house, and on the basis of the report, the house will pass the resolution in special majority. Then, after the passage of the things, it will go to the second house. Okay. So, on the basis of a report, if on the basis of the report, the house passes the resolution, house passes the resolution in special majority, and 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 it is sorry, special spends majority and sent to the other house. The second house needs to pass the RR, but this is not the end of the process. After the after the approval of the second house, the order goes to the resolution goes to the president, and after president passes an order, finally the judge is able. After the president after after so that is approved by the second house, this is the complete process of Removal of judges is the complete process of removal of judges. The first case of impeachment or first case of removal was against V. Ramaswamy in 1993. Okay, so this is the procedure. Look at the procedure first. Okay, next, the past judge against the past judge against whom? Okay, the past judge against whom the removal judge was Justice V. Ramaswamy, who was the judge of Supreme Court from 1991 to 1993. But Lok Sabha abstained from voting, and hence judge could not be found, that is removed. Though the inquiry committee found him guilty of misbehavior, he could not be removed as the impeachment motion was defeated in Lok Sabha. Although the committee found him guilty of that, but the parliament or the Lok Sabha rejected the removal, hence he could not be passed. And there are lot of there are also a few names can be cited, like Soumitra Sen and Justice Dinakaran was there. Okay, this is the salary and the security of tenure of the judges. Then seats of High Court, seats of Supreme Court. Okay, the constitution. So the seat of Supreme Court. Obviously, it sits in New Delhi now. There has been demand for establishment of seats in other metro cities of the higher, larger cities like Mumbai, Chennai, and Kolkata, and others. But this decision has not been made, and in case of the decision of the seat of the Supreme Court, the Chief Justice of India is the final authority. He, he can decide the other places from the seat of Supreme Courts, and that is the prerogative of the Chief Justice of India, nothing else. But so far, India is stationed, Indian Supreme Court is stationed in Wales, in New Delhi. The Indian Supreme Court is Supreme Court of India is stationed, headquartered in New Delhi. It may have other places if the Chief Justice so decides. So that is also a case thing of things. Okay. Then procedure of the judge cases. Procedure of court is that the court requires 5 judges for the settlement of constitutional disputes, and one more than one judges for the establishment or constitution of other cases, other matters. So it is based upon majority opinion of the judges in the bench. So there have been lot of litigated and dual differing voices in the corridors of judiciary. All right. So we have discussed all the tidbits about the Supreme Court. We shall come to the jurisdiction of the jurisdiction of the jurisdiction of the Supreme Court. Jurisdiction of the Supreme Court is wider because it is a federal court of India, and its jurisdiction can be increased, not decreased, can be altered, not diminished. Parliament may confer other judicial powers, other judicial things to the Supreme Court, but it cannot curtail the. Okay, so jurisdiction. Okay. Okay. So jurisdiction cannot be curtailed by increase. So the jurisdictions are as follows. Jurisdictions like original jurisdictions, number three, special leave jurisdiction, number four, revisory, Number 5, jurisdiction. Number 8, so you can see on the screen that there are a lot of jurisdictions of the Supreme Court, that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, you can say. So there are a lot of jurisdictions of the Supreme Court of India, and you can see that other powers also there. We have added interpreter of the Constitution as a one. So having a broader decision, another thing, it has extraterritorial and territorial jurisdiction over the, not only it has jurisdiction over the territory of India. You can add here. It has jurisdictions over the whole territory of India. Okay. So first we shall discuss the original 131. Article 131 deals with the original jurisdiction. It is the, as a federal court, Supreme Court the sole in the nature of disputes between the center and states. Number 2, disputes between or among states, and also disputes between center or any state on one side and two or more states on the other side. It is in these matters the jurisdiction of the Supreme Court is exclusive. That means no other court can decide such matters. With regard to the exclusive original jurisdiction of Supreme Court, 2 points here to be noted. Disputes must involve a question on which the existence of extent of legal right depends. The questions of political nature are excluded from it. Means center-state disputes on political issues are excluded. Very interesting. And there are certain matters also which are not covered under the not covered. Powers not covered original powers. Number one, disputes of political nature. Number two, disputes arising out of pre-constitution. That is called your covenant, etc. Then most important, interstate river water disputes. Although it is interstate disputes, but not that. Matters related to recommendations of Finance Commission. Or any other commercial disputes between the central states. So this is your original jurisdiction of the Supreme Court. Basically, in this original power, the Supreme Court deals with the federal disputes that arises between disputes between the central state or between the units, not between the intrastate disputes, is not covered under original disputes. And it is exclusive authority of the Supreme Court because these matters cannot be discussed, cannot be determined, cannot be decided by any other court, including the high courts. These aspects of these aspects make the Supreme Court a superior court and a highly important or significant judiciary in India. Okay, and there are certain cases the state can be sued also. State can be sued, and that is suability of the state is also adopted in this case. Apart from this, we have original jurisdiction. We have other jurisdiction which will discuss. We shall also discuss judicial issues facing India. For example, judicial review, judicial decline, or the role of judiciary in India, and judicial activism, or judicial legislation, so to say, some most important issue, vital issue facing the judiciary is judicial legislation. And judicial legislation means, and there are also PIL, public interest litigations, and activism. Is that clear? So we shall discuss that things, and discuss that things, and also discuss the um, implication of judicial review and the changing pace of judiciary, and we will cover the related aspects. Then we shall go to the high courts. So we'll cover the judiciary in its entirety, because it is very important for exam point of view. One or two questions in mains examination is a must from this chapter. So we are trying our level best to satisfy your needs and aspirations. Okay, so you are welcome to give constructive views in this endeavor of ours of Vanik. The mega institution is always trying to help you out in many matters. So any constructive suggestion you can give also, but there is no such constructive review we are giving. Very few are watching also. It's all right, but whoever you watching, please give your constructive criticism, constructive points if possible, so that we can improve ourselves. Okay, so we shall start the appellate jurisdiction next week. We shall take appellate jurisdiction next week. Okay, appellate jurisdiction next week. Appellate jurisdiction next week. Okay.